Hey guys, welcome back to the Cool Classic Kid Show, and today we're talking about, well, journalists seeing the writing on the wall. And, this is basically after the discussion and the announcement from Anita Sarkeesian herself that feminist frequency will be finished at the end of this year. It is over, the grift is finished, we were celebrating, we were telling Anita and feminist frequency to rest in piss, as they should. And journalists, they're basically on a lot of copium right now because they know the grift is over and that, well, things aren't going too well for their ideological, political jargon being involved in the entertainment space. But this article comes from The Gamer, and I very much disagree with the title of this article, and it reads, "The gaming industry can never undo feminist frequency," and this is copium. And guys, I cannot stress enough, in the previous video I made discussing feminist frequency coming to an end, a lot of people were like happy, but they were also like, well, the damage has already been done. Anita did an insane amount of irreparable damage to the gaming industry. And guys, look, man, I understand the sentiment and I understand where you're coming from, but it is not over. Feminist frequency falling is just the beginning. Changes can be made, but we have to speak up. We have to be willing to say no. It's okay to say no. We have to tell these gaming companies, these gaming developers, no, we do not want your activistic nonsense in our video games. We want fun video games again. That has to be something we have to do. We can't just continue to be silent. We have to speak and speak loudly and make demands and obviously vote with our wallet. And we have to do our part. We can't just stay silent anymore. The big reason why Anita stayed around as long as she could is, well, because basically anybody that had any criticism, anybody that happened to disagree, was immediately met with being calling an istophobe, if it be you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, you're a sexist, a racist, all these terms that really just, because they themselves would just throw that out there willy-nilly, no longer hold meaning. And while we were, a lot of us were silent, you were being called this anyway. So what's the point now of being silent anymore? You're automatically an evil human being to these people if you don't agree with everything that they say. So you might as well just be loud and make demands. And we, at the end of the day, are the consumers. We are the ones that actually put money into this industry, and we should have the final say. And overall, I say that I do not want your activistic nonsense in my video games. I just want fun video games again. And we have to speak that loudly. So please, I understand, that we've dealt with over a decade now of nonsense, but things can change, and they are changing. Things are making a change. Look at all these companies that are going under. Disney wants to virtue signal and constantly put social political ideologies in their films. Look at how well they're doing right now. Look at Bud Light, how well they're doing right now. Look at all these activist grifting organizations that have been around for years going under. Feminist frequency isn't the only one. There's plenty more out there. This grift is coming to an end, and it's time to make the change. And the pendulum has swung so far for these fucking clowns, these insane individuals that are all about divisiveness and grifting and really just being problematic human beings, just making everyone that does not agree with them out to be pure evil. Well, the pendulum is swinging the other way, and that's something that they're going to have to deal with. And this individual, being Tessa Carer, if I'm saying that correctly, this happens to be a they, them, and usually this is a sign of political derangement more often than not. And like I said, I very strongly disagree with this title, and they go on to say, games media has space for feminist critique, and that will never go away. And yes, games media will always have space for feminist critique, but if it's the divisive, insane, ideological nonsense that you're spewing, well, your feminist critique is going to be happening while you're online for food stamps. But let us continue. Anita Sarkeesian has been making videos critiquing media through a feminist lens for almost 15 years. Mind you, this is an individual that doesn't like video games, that doesn't play video games. They themselves claim that they and feminist frequency have made drastic change to gaming. And you would think that since they claim it's now for the better, that they would suddenly be into video games now. Well, no, that's not the case. They don't really like video games. They don't care about video games. They just grifted off of social, political, ideological nonsense with using video games to get what they want, essentially. It's all about me with this bitch. And she never liked video games anyway. And it's one of those things, why are you here? But that's over now. A nonprofit organization that started as a media outlet and went on to promote diversity and raise awareness of sexism and discrimination in video games will be shutting down in early 2024. And there was no diversity being promoted at all. It was more so really division that was promoted. Division, hatred, just constantly problematic. Basically, disruption. Division and disruption is the biggest thing that Anita Sarkeesian has pushed in her 15 years of having influence in gaming. But yes, they would go on to say that, oh, they're they're saintly in this space, when really that couldn't be any further from the truth. The news has been celebrated by Gamergaters everywhere. I was celebrating and I wasn't involved in Gamergate. Sure, I used to watch videos, but I had no real important social media influence at all. Really, Gamergate to me was just watching a lot of people bicker. And yeah, I'm not a Gamergater, but yeah, I'm celebrating the downfall of this individual that really has ruined gaming in a lot of ways. Not completely, but has made gaming a lot less fun for women like me. Members of a movement that targeted women in the games industry in the mid-2010s in an attempt to stymie feminist critique of games and prevent quote-unquote political correctness from entering the medium. And it's amazing how they can never be honest. They were caught, really, and journalistic integrity, because of some slimy dealings behind the scenes, very slimy if you actually, know some of the history behind it, had shown that, well, journalistic integrity in the gaming space needed to be reassessed, because there really was none. And it's just hilarious that these individuals think that gamers should dress up in a suit and tie and sit with a perfect posture and play video games and be politically correct and very polite and all that, when really that's not what gaming is about, and that's completely fine. Sometimes gaming is inherently a form of entertainment. Now, some of that juvenileness can be indeed toxic, but some of it is just really for fun, for the lulz, and apparently all that's bad. So yeah, we don't want political correctness in the space of gaming. We want gaming to be fun, juvenile, and overall entertainment. And they go on to say, they doxed female critics and game developers, including Sarkeesian, and sent death threats and harassment to countless others. And this happens on all sides of the aisle. I have been sent some really heinous comments in my time. It's not as though this is exclusive to one party or another. And really, the individuals that do send, death threats and harassment, and the problem is these people consider critique of their critiques harassment instead of, actual legitimate harassment. So it's hard to say how much of the so-called harassment is actual harassment, and well, not just them marking people that happen to disagree with them as inherently evil. But yes, these individuals that happen to do heinous things aren't representative of the entire body. And we continue. Gamergate was a turning point in the gaming world, bringing to light the vicious misogyny faced by women in the space and how resistant gamers were to the hobby being anything but a boys' club. And it's just like, when you constantly call people racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, all these terms, all of these and so much more, I've been told multiple times that I have internal misogyny, even though I'm a woman. And it's like, saying that these people that you disagree with are inherently the devil, in line with Hell Hydra and all that nonsense. Like when you constantly tout that out there, more often than not, people aren't just simply going to accept it. And that's really more so why you were met with constant resistance and really people challenging you, because people aren't just going to sit back and accept that, nor should they. These are terms that because they were constantly misused have lost their meaning, and now no one cares. But they continue to make it seem as though, well, they didn't do anything wrong, and that everything about their side of the story was self-righteous, and that the other side was inherently evil. That mentality persists to this day despite social progress that games criticism has has seen as an industry. It's like these people want to say, well, this movement actually, fixed things, and then they want to say, well, it's still messed up, and it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Did feminist frequency really make change, or did they not? Because Anita Sarkeesian took a victory lap saying, we've made so much change, but well, she doesn't play video games now, and well, you're still complaining and whining and self-victimizing. So, did she and feminist frequency make change, or and did you make change? You, the writer of this article, with your nonsensical articles of political ideology, in the gaming space, actually make a difference, or did you fail? That's something that they choose when is dependent on their scenario. They self-victimize when they need to, and they claim victory when they feel as though it is they want to, because these people, they like to be very bold. And they go on to say, when I first applied for the job of features editor at The Gamer, it was made very clear to me that because of the platform I would have and the views I hold, I would likely be exposed to online harassment at the minimum. And it's like, no, it's not because, you probably likely call people, all these istinphobe terms and claim that they're really bad people. No, it's more so because you're self-righteous, and inherently that self-righteousness is met with evil. That's really what they constantly bring to the table. Nothing really, no honest discussion every single time. And they said, I was prepared to take that on because I believe that good, inclusive, intersectional media criticism is critical to the health of the games industry and the media industry as a whole. And all that's proven is to literally be putting basically the games industry and the media industry on life support. Look at all these companies that do really push social political ideology. Look at Disney. It's rare when they make money at the box office nowadays, huh? Look at Bud Light. There's so many. Look at these activist organizations. Feminist Frequency isn't the first, grift activistic organization that's going under. There's plenty of them. And it goes to show that, yes, even the games industry and the media industry, a lot of people that adhere to the same sort of ideological nonsense that Anita Sarkeesian and even you, Tessa, adhere to, they're not doing so well in a lot of cases. And that will continue to be the case. Your grift is over. The Gamer is a place where I can write about, not about your passion for video games, but the portrayal of mental illness in AAA games, queer representation in Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and the erasure of Freya's feminine rage in God of War Ragnarok. This is, whether you like it or not, a consequence of Sarkeesian's legacy. And guess what? Your influence, because you don't actually genuinely talk about video games in any way, shape, or form, you simply want to insert, and most of the time self-insert. These people can't help but throw themselves into everything video game related because they're so self-obsessed. They themselves show signs of mental illness when really they don't like video games. And when you're talking about all this and you can't simply talk about the actual content of the game that's presented to you, everything must be through the lens of LGBT or feminism and all this stuff. Well, it goes to show that this is Anita Sarkeesian's doing, and because of that, you hold less and less power over gamers as time goes on. And once again, this is you probably likely at some point ending up in the same boat as feminist frequency and on the food stamp line. That's also likely going to be a consequence of Sarkeesian's legacy. And they go on to say, the thing is, Sarkeesian was not saying anything particularly radical, because calling people sexist, racist, homophobic, evil, inherently in some way, shape, or form, that's not at all radical, right? From the start, feminist frequency was talking about the basics of feminist critique, the male gaze, sexual objectification, different tropes the developers used for female characters instead of doing them justice with nuanced writing and deep characterizations. And it's funny because it's not like this stuff happens nowadays anyway, even though a lot of these organizations adhere, a lot of these game developers adhere to Sarkeesian's ideology. I argue that female characters are even less depthful and less interesting than ever before, and it's just... And it's like, well, she's not at all radical, but she herself has said everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you must call it all out. That doesn't sound at all radical, right? Amazing. And he said, I didn't agree with all of her takes, but they introduced the most basic of feminist language into a space that was entirely resistant to it. Well, people are resistant to being calling nasty things, and that's kind of natural. The backlash she received then, and the backlash that people are facing now for praising her in the wake of the shuttering of feminist frequency, because this person just has to be a victim because they know shit is coming to an end and they're on the copium and they're trying to make it seem as though this person's influence is forever when really is not. Take this language for what it is. This is a person that knows things are not going well for their political, ideological nonsense. Only proves that there is a loud population of gamers who are committed to misogyny and willful ignorance. And I am not at all ignorant. I've been playing video games since the late 90s. And I continue to play video games, and I for fact can tell that the influence of you pieces of shit and gaming have made the entertainment medium worse. That is a sad reality. And you know what? I think that there's definitely a lot of things that could have been corrected from back in those, back before Sarkeesian's influence. There's definitely, because nothing is perfect. That is what is life but imperfection. Like that's obviously something that could be admitted to. But everything that basically anybody that disagrees, misogynist or willfully ignorant. And you know what? If that's the case, if I'm willfully ignorant and have, I guess, internal misogyny, as some people say, well, you know what? That's good. That's fine. I don't care. You know why? Because I want what I want. You know why? Because I'm an actual consumer. You likely, who knows what you consume if you consume anything at all. I actually pay for these products. So I demand as the consumer what I want. Give me what I want. No woman should ever have been sent death threats for critically analyzing the treatment of fictional women in video games. And once again, victimization. But that's what happened. And guess what? This happens to, to me for critiquing people like you. It happens all around. Men get sent death threats. Nobody should be sent death threats. I completely agree to that. But the fact you can't even acknowledge that this also does happen to men out here too, well, that goes to show that, well, all you care about is really yourself, and you want this sense of protection, especially during these times, well, when your grift is clearly over. What was the world that feminist frequency was created to address? In an interview at Polygon, Sarkeesian said it was at the very beginning of video blogging and internet video. We were talking about representation very on early on in a mainstream way. It wasn't a popular thing to do outside of academia. She continued, all we did, people paid and we did it. People paid attention and people started caring aggressively. And yeah, because, well, people noticed that can make money off of this nonsense. But the money, well, is drying up. I'm going to say developers started to pay attention out of fear. That's literally what it is. It's not like these developers really care. They're just afraid of being labeled as some of these bad, heinous things that they get labeled. Arcane Studios, Harvey Smith spoke to her about the women in Dishonored and made a deliberate effort with the DLC Onward to put women in more interesting, nuanced roles. Naughty Dog director Neil Druckmann cited Sarkeesian's influence on his work on Uncharted 4. And, I mean, I really can't speak for Dishonored personally. I've never played the franchise. I'm not much for, stealth centric games. But Neil Druckmann has proven to also be a divisive person, just like Anita Sarkeesian is. And, well, that's literally split the basically the fan base that Naughty Dog has had, where some people, really love their work and some people really can't stand their work. And that is in part due to Nita Sarkeesian. And they continue down this path, they will definitely fracture their communities and they will have less influence. That's just what it is. It is partly Sarkeesian's influence on the industry that has brought us to a place where it is a norm for big gaming websites to publish incisive feminist critiques about video games. And this is a big reason why, well, big gaming websites are no longer so big anymore. If you continue to be insufferable people that cannot relate to the individuals that you're trying to put your content out there for, you will not be big anything anymore. You will further shrink as time goes on. You could blame it on this and you can blame it on that, but guess what? The lasting negative impact you leave on people will make people toss you aside. It is because feminism was brought to the industry that we can recognize the danger of being a woman at game conferences and highlight that the lack of women at Summer Game Fest is part of a wider problem in the industry. And I covered that absolute nonsense because, well, it can't be the best person that obviously has the ability to discuss the game in detail. It can't be that. They must make sure there are women there. And it's not enough to have, a bunch of female characters in video games. No, there must be actual women present to discuss these video games on stage, even though, well, there's likely a decent amount of women that actually do make these video games. But if they're not in the face of these journalists, well, that's a problem. Such a petty conversation to have. And it's just and it's because of feminism why people just are sick of your shit. And that's really what it boils down to. People are genuinely just sick of hearing about all this. People don't want to hear it anymore. This is why your influence is dwindling. This is why, well, you're scared. In this article, you self-victimize because you're in a situation where you see that the grift is once again, it's coming to an end. And they say it's because of feminist frequency that women began to feel they had as much of a right to video game discourse as men. And I've never really felt a serious situation where I personally didn't have the right to video game discourse, being a female in the space. because, well, I proved that I knew what the fuck I was talking about when I would speak. A lot of people like you tend to not really know what you're talking about, or tend to not even like the video games you're speaking about, or tend to not care about the entertainment form itself. A lot of the time, individuals such as you prove to hate the entertainment form and seek to change it to fit your personal narrative or your personal deranged view on the world. It's you get into video games not because, well, you like them, but more so because you see the profit, you see the money, you see the influence, you see the potential of what video games could do for you, not what you could do for video games. And that simply is why people don't wish to listen to your nonsense in this space. And they go on to say, we may have finally moved beyond the need for feminist frequency. Well, because there's no desire for it anymore. I mean, the views of the YouTube channel itself seems to prove a lot of that. Not even the people that adhere to the uh, feminist, hyper feminized ideology of feminist frequency, the people that actually side with them didn't even watch their content anymore. And the base level of discussion it provokes, but we are far from beyond the need for feminism in the gaming space. Critics are still regularly attacked for having opinions that show any concern about societal ills, or for talking about misogyny or women in games, full stop. And it's funny because individuals like you absolutely cannot stand me. You hate me, say I'm an internal misogynist, do kind of the same stuff you claim that is done to you as well. But the fact that this is a norm at all already shows the impact of Sarkeesian's legacy. We can never go back to what it was like before, and that is a good thing. We must only go forward, and we can. I don't want to say I don't want to go backwards, but I definitely want to get rid of your influence, and that certainly is possible with time. Because people don't give a shit about what you have to say anymore. And people are done being called all these names. People are done listening to you. People are done with feminist frequency. People are done with articles like this. People are done with um, frauds in the gaming space. That's what the majority of you are, frauds. You don't really like video games. You just like to push your ideology on video games. And that is coming to an end. You may continue to do that, but that doesn't mean that you'll have a job. And you can say that I have internal misogyny, you can say all these things, but I am a woman, and I'm telling you that you acting like a victim while claiming to speak for all women is offensive to me, and I really don't want to hear it anymore. You can't act like a person that has any self-pride at all, like someone that doesn't do it just for, themselves, then nobody really wants to hear what you have to say. And Anita Sarkeesian's influence can indeed be diminished to nothing. Like I said, judging by feminist frequencies views the past many years, it doesn't seem like anyone really cares about what they have to say anymore anyway. And soon, as more time goes on, companies will either get with the program that people want fun video games that don't preach to them, or, well, these companies just simply won't exist anymore. And that just is what it is. We may lose some once great developers out of it. We may lose some great talent out of it. And we may lose some once great companies out of it. But we've already lost plenty enough as it is. And when one, falls, many will rise up to replace them. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about this video. If you can, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Don't be black-pilled. Keep telling these dudes what you want. Keep telling these soy boys, simps, for Anita Sarkeesian, that you want fun video games again, or to get to stepping, as Martin would say. You can, follow me on Twitter or Kick if you'd like to continue the conversation. And guys, well, I'll be and set them out. Peace.